Hi, I'm Avi Melamed and I'm broadcasting to you from Israel. Today is Sunday, July 27. It's day 20th to the military confrontation between Israel and Hamas known as Operation Protective Edge. In my analysis today, I would like to say a few words about some diplomatic aspect, and that is the draft that was offered or suggested by the American Secretary of State, Mr. Kerry, that was rejected by Israel, the Palestinian Authority, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. The bottom line is that reportedly that draft was almost totally reflecting or standing or adopting the positions of Hamas and its sponsors, the Qataris, the Turks, while totally oblivious to the needs and interests of Israel, the Palestinian Authority, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia on that matter. It's important to understand the wide context. Why was it rejected? Um, in the last couple of years, given the growing chaos and violence in the Middle East, there is a clear interest of major states and entities in the region to protect and create stability as much as possible, and at the same time to limit the abilities of factors that are interested in instability. So what we see is states like Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, the Gulf states, Palestinian Authority to a large extent as well, that are trying to limit the abilities of these factors like Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood to initiate and to enhance instability. As an outcome of that, what we see in the region is also the reflection of this struggle between entities, state entities like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, most of the Gulf states on the one hand, and entities in the region, state entities like Iran, like Qatar, like Turkey, who for different reasons are interested in instability or increasing instability. In the context of Hamas specifically, it should be mentioned that Hamas perceives itself to be the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a very important mass movement in the Muslim world, established in Egypt about 100 years ago. This is a movement that has a very radical modus operandi as well as political and ideological vision. This is a movement that totally rejects the Western values, calling upon the elimination of the State of Israel, and Hamas is part of that movement. As part of its activities, Hamas, as I said, is interested in generating this instability, as it's being proven in the last couple of violent rounds Hamas initiated in the context of the Gaza Strip and the conflict with Israel. Egypt, the Saudis, the Palestinian Authority, obviously Israel as well, and other elements in the region like the Jordanians, like the Gulf states, perceive the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas as a dangerous destabilizing factor, and they are interested in limiting as much as possible the ability to create instability. As of today, the Muslim Brotherhood is outlawed in Egypt as a terror organization. It's outlawed in Saudi Arabia. Egypt views the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas as a national strategic threat to Egypt's national security. Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian president are engaged in an ongoing conflict with the Hamas, regardless of the recent reconciliation agreement that was signed between the two sides a couple of months ago. The same applies as for Jordan, the same applies as for other Arab states, for example, like Kuwait in the Gulf states. On the other hand, we have entities like Qatar and Turkey that support Hamas for their own interests. Qatar harbors leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar, known to be a big supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood and obviously a big supporter of Hamas, providing Hamas with political support, funds, and so forth. The Qatari position is basically manifesting the desire of Hamas to conduct an independent foreign policy, many times defying or challenging the role of Saudi Arabia. To that end, Qatar is using two of its most important strategic cards. One is the famous Al Jazeera Arab News Network, and the other thing is the wealth of Qatar. So Qatar harbors leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar supports Hamas. That policy put Qatar on a track of collision with both the Saudis and the Egyptians, and it's being manifested in a long series diplomatic incidents and political arguments and collision between the two sides. Turkey under the leadership of Erdogan. Erdogan is interested to position itself as the leader of the Arab world. That aspiration is not welcomed by majority of the Arabs, and rightfully so. The Turks are not even Arab. Egypt and Saudi Arabia do not view favorably Erdogan's aspiration to be the leader of the Arab world. Erdogan, to that end, is mostly trying to exhaust the Israeli card. He was doing that during the famous event of the flotilla. He's doing that constantly in the context of the repeating military round between Israel and Hamas and other Palestinian radical groups in the Gaza Strip. Through that venue, Erdogan is trying to position himself as the leader or the prominent leader of the Arab world. He's also trying to position himself as the successful role model for the Muslim Brotherhood. Therefore, you could understand again that Turkey, under the leadership of Erdogan, similar to Qatar, is on a track of a conflict and sometimes even collision with the Saudis, the Egyptians, other Gulf states, the Palestinian Authority, and of course Israel as well. Understanding that, now we could understand why was the draft suggested by Kerry rejected firmly and decisively by Israel, by the Palestinian Authority, by the Saudis, and by Egyptians. First and foremost, accepting that draft is playing exactly to the hand of the factors in the region that are interested in increasing instability. We have to remember there are different factors today in the region that are watching very closely what's going on right now in the context of the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Hezbollah in Lebanon, ISIS in Iraq, Al-Qaeda, the Iranian regime, and other factors that are enhancing and promoting instability are watching very closely to see what will be the outcome of this round. Second, as far as the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas are concerned, the draft is a massive blow to the Palestinian Authority and to its president. Why? Because one of the major arguments that the Palestinian president has been always using, and rightfully so, in the conflict against the political conflict against Hamas, was to say to his own people, the Palestinians, Hamas is a dangerous factor. He leads you Palestinians from one catastrophe to the other, which was proven to be accurate. Time and time again, Hamas leading Gaza Strip ever since it took Gaza Strip in 2007 in a violent coup from one catastrophe to the other. Therefore, the suggestion or the draft that was presented by Kerry is actually pulling the rug beneath the feet of the Palestinian president, because it is rewarding Hamas, ironically, despite of its irresponsible, reckless, radical leadership. Obviously, in another level, the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Kuwaitis are very much infurious with the fact that this draft is actually supporting or standing by Qatar and Turkey that are standing for the opposite camp. It is very clear that the draft that was presented by Kerry is very puzzling. But the most puzzling thing about that draft, in my mind, is the amazing following fact. In any circumstances, in any context of possible arrangements and agreements regarding the Gaza Strip, in the short term, in the long term, there is one major player that must be there and will be there, and this is Egypt. The reason for it starts first and foremost with a very simple, basic fact. It is Egypt, not Turkey and not Qatar. It is Egypt who controls the land passage, the Rafah crossing that connects Egypt with the Gaza Strip. Therefore, it is very puzzling and intriguing why did Mr. Kerry didn't even include Egypt in the draft that he was portraying. Indeed, very puzzling. The bottom line as of now, as I said, the draft was totally rejected by Israel, by the Palestinian Authority, by the Egyptians, by the Saudis, and rightfully so, of course, and it is off the table. Yet, the puzzling remains. Thank you for listening and watching. I'm Avi Melamed. Goodbye and shalom from Israel.